All right, you're good.
All right, good. I'm not going to repeat what I just said, but we're going to talk about is it ever okay to lie? All right, next slide. Are you sometimes tempted to lie or stretch the truth? If so, when are you most likely to do this?
Fishing.
Yeah.
That's perfect.
That was pretty quick, though. So when you get an answer that quick, you know somebody has done
Yeah,
it.
yeah,
Usually the
yeah,
person who said it.
Yeah.
Oh,
I,
that's a
I
good one.
think the I think the I think the older you get, the less you think you need to stretch the truth or lie or whatever. You just think, at least for me, I get just more blunt. I guess it's like, oh, the hell with it, right?
Yeah, yeah. The
So
filter.
I got to ask you, Rick, everything I tell you, you believe?
Well, except you.
All right. Why do you think it's so common for people to lie or stretch the truth?
It's what they've heard all their lives and
Yeah,
grew up with.
yeah,
How it might
When you
Yeah,
talk
no.
about a pastor that goes every Sunday and gives a sermon, when he's looking for putting people in the seats, he's going to tell you probably most of the time things you want to hear. And some of those things that you don't want to hear, you never hear. And some of those, they get stretched on the truth. Uh, well, we've had many conversations in our Bible studies about that, about how, is that real or is that right? Or, well, kind of.
Well,
yeah,
that brings up the point of the lie of omission,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Mhm.
And that, I think those are easier for us to do.
yeah,
right.
exactly.
We're gonna talk about that here shortly, Greg.
Yeah.
Are there ever times you should not do what you said you would do?
Hmm.
And then is that a lie? Right?
Well, I think the answer for me is absolutely. I mean, there's
Oh, yeah.
times where I've been asked to do things I didn't want to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I'm
So,
gonna
Anyway.
I'm gonna kill that guy next time I see him. Well,
Right.
I better not do that.
Oh, punch him in the nose.
Yeah.
Right.
uh, anyway. Does being honest or telling the truth mean sharing everything you know?
Hmm.
No.
Mm-mm.
Does
No.
do these pants make my butt look big? How about
I had my boss tell his son one time, he said, listen, I never want you to lie to your mother, but you don't have to tell her everything you know either.
All right. I'm thinking this is going to be a good lesson. All right. So, what is a lie? Definition: a lie is any statement or action intended to deceive. Types of lies: outright falsehoods. We don't hear any of that, do we?
No.
No.
Half truths, deception by omission. You mentioned that, Greg.
Yeah.
Flattery with false intent. So, all interesting.
Well, I think well, put that back up
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
So I think your definition is very important, is that there has to be an intent to deceive.
Right. Right.
Because, just, rounding things or generalization, isn't necessarily a lie.
Yep.
If we say our daughter's in the hospital for 15 months, but it's really 14 months and 3 weeks, is that a lie? Or is that just you're just,
Right.
trying to make the conversation easier to
Yep.
to have?
Generalize it. Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
So I
Good.
don't think saying something that isn't technically 100% true isn't necessarily a lie.
Yep. Yep.
Well, I would just have to tell you that if anybody's ever had twins, you're going to know that there's a lot of lying going on.
But on the other hand, when you say a lie is any statement or action intended to deceive, is that okay sometimes? So if you're hiding Anne Frank, is it okay to tell the authorities I'm not hiding anybody? You're definitely
Right.
intending to deceive them, but is that lie okay?
Right. Right.
Well, that
I have
gets it.
something. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Gary.
that gets into the point of, are all lies bad?
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
Is lie a sin?
Sometimes you have to lie for the greater good.
Yep.
Yeah.
We'll have a few examples of those coming up. I have a little background. If you want to read this, Rick, go ahead.
Yep. In the current political climate, spins, false equivalences, misrepresentations, misinformation, conspiracy theories, and outright lying have become a new normal. Artificial intelligence can show people in their own voices saying things they never said, or doing things they never did. ChatGPT enables people to take credit for writings they never wrote. Pontius Pilate questioned to Jesus, "What is truth?" John 18:38 is a question increasingly more difficult to answer. Facts, history, legend, and myth are all blurred together. In times like these, believers naturally turn to the Bible for guidance. Lying a human propensity that has escalated to a new level, or has this been a problem from time immemorial? Following biblical examples may surprise you.
Thanks, Rick. It's kind of interesting. I was talking to Greg last night, so I put this Bible study together using the web, right? Different resources. And then I went to ChatGPT and I said, write me a Bible story, or write me a Bible study on biblical on is it okay to lie? And damn if it wasn't pretty close to what I put together.
Wow.
You know, and I don't know if it looked at my search history and what I was looking on before it wrote it, but it's kind of crazy. So, and Gary was talking about that too, how easy it is to write articles now using things like ChatGPT.
Yeah, yeah. I belong to this newsletter. It's called, and it's digital. It's called PolitiFact. I get it every day, and everything that's said has by politicians that's said the day before, they report on what is true and what is lies. And so, I mean, I'm not going to read this whole thing, but like this morning, I read Netanyahu's pants on fire, denial of starvation in Gaza. What is next for Trump's tariffs? And it goes on, and it'll tell what exactly is true and what's false. I get that every single day. Now, I will admit, it's like reading Tapper's book. You know, there's a swing always in the direction of whatever they believe. It's a lot
Right.
about beliefs. Sometimes you feel, I mean, you can lie so well, you begin to think it's true.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
Well, and
All right.
that brings up the point of, everybody speaks from a perspective that they understand, a worldview that
Oh,
they
yeah.
understand.
Yeah.
So there's this, in today's world, there's this conversation about, is life objective or subjective? And I think more people today lean towards, well, there is no objective truth. It's all subjective. To me, that's ridiculous, but you see it, it's real. I mean, two people watch the same event and come up with 180-degree conclusions. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
No,
Yep.
exactly. There are, as I read all of these, and I do each day, I look at them, that there's so many variables to the truth. I mean, it's like looking at statistics. You can swing them if you just know how to do it. So if you hear that, is there people starving in the Gaza Strip? I'll use this as an example. Yeah, absolutely. Are they getting, food and everything? Yes, they are, but they're not getting it to all of them. So that's for sure.
Well, Gary, one of my dad's favorite sayings was, figures lie and liars figure. And he was a mathematician.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's true. It's true.
yeah.
I've sat through so many research studies in my life and looking at dissertations and you start seeing it there, that what their hypothesis was and what their findings were. And at the end, again, it's what we've all talked about. It's a mindset on how they feel about that certain situation starts showing up. And if they feel that way, they're going to lean it that way.
Right. All right. So biblical characters that lied, and I put a question mark on here because I don't know. Did they lie? Did they not lie? Here's some examples. We know Rahab lies to her own people about the whereabouts of the Israelite spies and is praised and rewarded. She becomes an ancestor of Jesus Christ. Egyptian midwives lie to Pharaoh, and God rewards them. Elisha accepts a bribe, tells Ben-Hadad what he wants to hear, a barefaced lie, and is not condemned. Moses lies to Pharaoh and is not condemned. Pharaoh sees through the lie. Jonathan lied to his father, King Saul, to see if his father intended to harm or kill David. That's the story we just talked about. An older prophet lies to a younger and later loses his life as a result. The older prophet is neither condemned nor punished. Ironically, the older prophet gets to tell the younger prophet about the lie he told him and the deadly consequences of believing it. That's from 1 Kings. Abraham lies without condemnation about his wife being his sister. We all remember that story. She was his half-sister, but the intent to deceive is clear in this story. Isaac tells a similar lie and is not condemned either. Jacob and his mother lie to Isaac. In this case, Jacob suffers anguish from not seeing his mother alive again and lives in fear of reprisal from his brother Esau. Nevertheless, he still enjoys the privileges and promises of birthright acquired by lying and deception. So there are biblical examples of people that lied and were rewarded, or weren't punished for their lies, so to speak.
I can't, King David.
Right.
His life is full of deception, and then asking forgiveness, and and look at him, how he's looked at by the Jewish people even today.
Right.
Well, we didn't lie or we didn't sin, Jesus wouldn't have to die on the cross.
Well, look at Peter.
Yeah.
I never knew this man.
Right. Right.
Yeah, but Gary, that was that woman. That was her fault with the apple thing. I mean,
Yeah.
come on.
Yeah, that's true.
It's always the woman's fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We knew it from the tree,
Yeah.
I'm going to need you to edit this recording a little bit.
God knew it all along. He started it. He made man of dirt.
Mm-hmm.
And, women were made from prime rib.
That's true.
And now we'll talk a little bit about situational ethics. And Steve kind of alluded to this a little bit in his comments. So here's a scenario. You're a Christian in Nazi Germany hiding a Jew in your basement, and the SS officer knocks on your door and asks, "Do you have any Jews here? Do you lie to save the Jew's life, or tell the truth and leave the result to God?" Or you're a fast food worker at a drive-through window, and you notice an armed man hiding in the back of a woman's car. She is obviously unaware of her danger. Do you walk up to the window and tell her the truth and hope the armed man doesn't jump out and shoot her and you? Or do you tell a lie? "Madam, there seems to be a problem with your credit card. Can you pull it aside and come into the store, please?" So, do the above life or death scenarios justify a situation ethics approach to decision making? What do you think? Or is it really a lie?
No, the Bible's full of exactly that. I mean,
Right. Yeah, Rahab was the first one, right? She's protecting the people in her home. Or do you let love overrule complicity with evil? That's kind of the, you almost have to let your heart decide what the right thing to do is in situations like that, right? And in these cases, would you tell the lie? My response is absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Yep.
Accept the consequences of that.
Right. Okay, tact or white lie. What is the so-called white lie? A lie about an inconsequential matter that is told to avoid hurting another person's feeling. And Rick, you alluded to that. Does my butt look fat in these pants?
No, it's your butt that makes your butt look fat. So this is interesting, right? So if someone you love is overweight, do you just keep avoiding it? Or do you wait until it becomes a life consequence for them? And it starts, they can't participate in things. They actually die of it. Because one of the things that's going on all around us, if you go to a cafeteria in an elementary school and you look across that cafeteria, it's like 80% of the kids are grossly overweight, not kind of overweight, they're grossly overweight. And you're going, what are we telling ourselves? Ultimately there is a complicit lie going on here that's just fine. So what do you do? Right.
Right.
So if I tell you that I'm a woman, am I lying?
That's funny, but it's also,
It's true. Yeah.
it's reality right
Oh,
now.
yeah. The other thing I have, these go from one end of the gamut all the way to the other. And Steve, you probably may have this come, but how many times you walk down and you go into work, you go somewhere and you're feeling like crap, and people say, "Well, how you doing today?" You go, "Oh, I'm doing great.
I'm fine.
I'm fine. Everything's good." And in your subconscious, you're saying, I feel like crap.
Well, if you say that, they turn around and walk away, and the conversation ends.
Yeah. How you feeling? Terrible.
Yeah.
So this thing you have up here is like,
Yep.
so if the shirt they're wearing is 2 sizes too small and the buttons are starting to pop, you don't say anything. If there's a piece of spinach on their teeth, you say, "Hey, there's some spinach on your teeth. You need to get that before you go into the interview." Right? It's like, ugh.
Yep. Yeah. You're in a situation where someone is seeking affirmation for how they look, perhaps seeking self-confidence for an important job interview or a date. Do you say, "Oh, you look fine, just great"? Or would it be better to tactfully tell the truth? "You look okay, but I've seen you look better." Or bluntly say, "If it is in fact the case, you don't look good at all." I don't think I choose the last item in most cases.
No.
Uh, is tact the distortion of the truth, or is the truth made more palatable? The later is more often the case, I think.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I was going to bring up how many times and I don't know if it bothers you much, but you've had some really bad tragedy. Some guy lost all his kids or something in a flood or tornado or hurricane or something. And the first question any commentator is, "Well, how are you feeling?" "Well, how do you think I'm feeling?"
right.
Yeah.
Well, Steve,
Yep.
you're getting ready to go up for your aunt's funeral, right?
Yep.
And so the people that are close to her are probably not going to look their best, but that is not why they're there, and that's not why you're there. So it gains nothing to say, "Man, you look like you haven't slept in 3 days." You're going, well, yeah,
Consider the
um,
circumstances. Yeah.
yeah, and this to me is a what would Jesus do moment, right? You have to, before you speak, remember you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, and just think about the situation. There's context and there's a time for things, um, that if Jesus is standing in front of somebody that's been begging on that wall next to that step for 30 years, they probably don't look too good, right? They probably don't smell too good. All those things, but he kneels down and lifts them up. Now he had the ability to heal them too, but in a way, we all have an ability to heal, right?
Yep. Yep.
Well, if you go back to something a couple minutes ago where you said if they ask you at work how you feeling, you feel like crap, and you say you're feeling fine, it could just also be a matter of perspective, and you realize, well, I'm doing a lot better than people in the gutters of Calcutta or somebody that just got a TBI from a IED in
Right.
Iraq or something like that. So
Yeah.
it could just be a matter of perspective and degree. On the spectrum of how bad I could be feeling, yeah, I guess I am okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is
Yeah.
that really a lie?
Or sometimes when you say I'm fine, uh, it's if you say I'm not doing so well, you don't want to have a big conversation
Right.
about why you aren't doing
Right.
fine. You'd rather not
Yeah.
go into it.
Right.
I personally, the people that I've talked to that say fine right away, they're just like what you're talking about, Daryl.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a quick response. It's probably, you don't go as deep into thinking of, well, let me think about how I'm feeling. It's immediate. I don't want to spend a lot of time about all my issues. I'm doing fine. I'm doing great.
Sometimes,
I'll deal with this with my crap on my own.
sometimes you can say things like, "How are you doing?" And you might get a different response than "fine."
Fine. Right.
Oh yeah, and
Us
you're
with
right.
other
So
people.
you get one of two things when you get people that say, if they say, "No, I'm not doing very well today." Yeah, those people that ends the conversation pretty quickly. But you have those people also say, "Oh, is there anything I can do? Is there
Correct.
something I can do to help?"
Right.
So you get both sides if you do it, but that's going to require more talking about it, and some people are in a hurry. So we
Well,
have a
Well,
and I think
society
that,
that likes to keep moving.
yeah, I'd
or you
agree
just say,
that,
I'm here if you need me.
yeah, and I think that it depends on who you're talking to. If you're talking to somebody you know and they
Yeah.
never complain about anything, and then all of a sudden they say,
Right. Right.
well, I'm glad you asked.
Yeah.
I mean, you lean in. That's when you lean in.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. I have a situation kind of like that right now. I have a guy, a police officer that I've known forever since we moved back here, and met him at our church, and he's a really great guy. But he has spent he retired, and they called him back in as a detective on a cold case, and he's worked on this cold case for years. This guy had stabbed and killed this young 18-year-old girl when it was 1959, and he literally solved it. He solved it within the last few months, and everybody is so excited for him and everything. But the guy that actually did the stabbing, he's in Dayton now, and they brought him back here. But he's in his middle to late 70s. And he's in a wheelchair and he's not very well. And yesterday, the courts decided to let him plead manslaughter, and they gave him 2 years, and they let him out right away. And the reason I'm
So
telling
all
that
that
story,
work.
that
Wow.
this guy that spent years finding this guy is just devastated from it. I mean, he just is,
Oh,
and he's a good Christian guy, and he's just saying, and the other thing is, I told you he was retired, and they brought him back to do this one thing. And when I called him yesterday to see how he was doing, he said, "Well, I'm packing up." I said, "Packing up? What are you talking about?" He said, "Well, the minute this case was over, they told me to leave."
Wow.
Yeah,
oh,
yeah. Boy, we treat these officers nicely.
Uh,
well, I guess a positive from that sense for that man would be giving the family the
Yeah.
the truth,
Oh, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And there's very,
even if justice didn't.
yeah. And
Right.
what's interesting, I was talking about this with Debbie last night, was that it's been so long ago that really the parents are gone, the brothers and sisters are gone. There's an aunt and there's some cousins that they were interviewed on the news last night, and they obviously weren't happy with it. I mean, I wouldn't be either. I mean, justice needs to be served, and murder's murder, and they didn't see it as murder. They saw it as manslaughter. They changed it so he could get a lesser number of years, and they immediately released him. They didn't, and it's society. Where are you going to put a mid 70s-year-old man in jail that's in a wheelchair?
Right.
So, a lot of issues there.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm going to go be with after our Bible study. I'm going to go meet and have breakfast with him, with
Mm.
the cop.
Tell him we talked about him today.
I will. I'll tell him. Tell him, quit your whining.
Move on.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, all right. As we all know, our words have consequences and should be used with careful stewardship. We have all seen instances when the truth has been used in the most unloving, destructive manner as a battering ram or a club that leaves a person feeling battered and bludgeoned. We have a president that does that from time to time, I think.
You think?
All right. The problem is that in the spiritual realm, wait, the problem is that the spiritual realm has no neutral territory. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life. There is no truth outside of him. On the other hand, the devil does not stand in truth because there is no truth in him. When he speaks a lie, he speaks from his own resources, for he is a liar and the father of it. Every time we give ground to the devil's deceptions, we take it from the word of God. In a world of deception, be honest. The effects of one or two lies may not be apparent, but we don't have to look far to uncover the fallout caused by a culture of deceit. Compared to older generation, Gen Z is the least trusting generation in every institution. And as of September 2022, just 43% of American adults have some or a lot of trust in the U.S. government. The further we as a society move away from a standard of absolute truth, the more cynical our collective conscience becomes. I wonder what that poll would say today as more and more documents are released.
Right.
According to Bible prophecy, this rising tide of deception will continue to swell as the end of time draws nearer. When the disciples asked Jesus about the signs of the end time, he began his response with this warning: take heed that no one deceives you. A literal translation of planes, the Greek word for deceive, would be to cause to wander. Satan rarely launches a full frontal assault. He often uses more subtle forms of deception. How to stand for the truth in a world of lies. 1, recognize the dangers of deception. Remember God's goodness. Rely on God's word as a standard of truth. And refuse to spread lies and misinformation. So we'll kind of peel back each one of these. Recognizing the dangers of deception. In Timothy 1:4, 1-2, the Apostle Paul warned, now the Spirit expressly says that in later times some will depart from the faith, giving heed to deceiving spirits and doctrines of demons, speaking lies and hypocrisy, having their own conscience seared with a hot iron. Recent data suggests the fulfillment of this prophecy is already emerging in our world. For the first time in 80 years of monitoring, Gallup reports that the church membership of adults in America dipped below 50% in 2020, following an accelerated decline over the past 20 years. And I don't think that's improved in the last 5 years. Anytime we begin doubting God, Satan follows us in a dump truck, unloading the garbage of suspicion, negativity, and delusionment into our mind. Before we know it, he will lead us all the way to the place of denying God. Make no mistake, Satan doesn't want to help us. He wants to destroy us. Deception is deadly. As the culture becomes more tolerant of deceit, Christians have a growing burden to destroy arguments and every lofty opinion raised against the knowledge of God, and take every thought captive to obey Christ. Number 2, remember God's goodness. Doubting God's grace and goodness begins subtly. In the Garden of Eden, Satan installed doubt in Eve's mind by asking, did God actually say you shall not eat of any tree in the garden? Eve rolled down deception's slippery slope by refraining God's command just enough to diminish the extent of his goodness. God gave Adam and Eve permission to freely eat the fruit of every tree of the garden, but Eve left out the word freely. By shifting her focus from the many trees God gave her for food to that one tree that was forbidden, she unlocked the door to doubt. Giving Satan inroads into our mind leads us to think less of God's grace and more of his way. Satan encourages us to focus on what we can't do instead of what we are privileged to do. The next thing we know, we begin to believe God doesn't have our best interest in mind. When we overemphasize God's boundaries, we forget the Lord is good, a refuge in times of trouble. He cares for those who trust in him. Rely on God's word as a standard for truth. Amen. Eve also misquoted God's warning about the consequences of sin. The Lord had cautioned Adam that eating the forbidden fruit would cause him to surely die, but Eve quoted him as saying, "Lest you die." This subtle shift made God's warning sound more like a possibility than a certainty. It's easy for Christians to read a word to God in terms of maybe when the text says definitely, or here consider when scripture says obey. What sins have you reframed through the lens of deception? How have you justified white lies, improper relationships, or online indulgences? Diluting God's word with your own wisdom can blur the line between right and wrong. The way to determine what is true is by searching the scriptures. The Apostle John wrote, "Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits, whenever they are of God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world." We guard our mind against falsehood by comparing different beliefs and ideas with the Word of God. Satan lies cannot hold up against the truth of Scripture. Refuse to spread lies and misinformation. One of the defining characteristics of God's people is love of the truth. When the apostle wrote to the believers in Thessalonica, he said, "The coming of the lawless one, and according to the working of Satan, with all power, signs, and lying wonders, and with all unrighteous deception among those who perish, because they did not receive the love of the truth that might be saved." It's impossible to be a genuine Christian without loving the truth. Jesus told the Samaritan woman at the well, "The hour is coming, and now is when the true worshipers will worship the Father in spirit and truth, for the Father is seeking such to worship him. God is spirit, and those who worship him must worship in spirit and truth." We live in a culture that does not believe in objective truth, but God's wisdom does not conform to the prevailing winds of popular opinion. Relativism is incompatible with biblical Christianity. The writer of Hebrews tells us, Jesus Christ is the same yesterday, today, and forever. And Jesus himself said, "If you abide in my word, you are my disciples indeed, and you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free." One of Satan's greatest deceptions is convincing men and women, when they can find freedom in their chosen reality. In fact, only when we grasp God's truth and let it take hold of our hearts are we truly free. All right, a summary. We all know we live in a culture that does not believe in objective truth, but God's wisdom does not conform to the prevailing winds of popular opinion. Relativism is incompatible with biblical Christianity. The writer of Hebrews tells us. I think I just read this again. Yeah, that's just repeating the last sentence. That's kind of the summary of this. So not easy in today's culture. And it's almost like, speaking half-truths or, the media slanting things, over the last 10 or 15 years. It makes things less, it makes things, oh, that's not that big of an issue, where 20 years ago it probably would have been a big issue to me. Right?
Yeah, I think a big part of this is who lies, right? When a politician stretches the truth, or when someone's telling a story to kind of make themselves look a little bit better, to me it doesn't chip away at the foundation of who I am. But when someone close to you tells a lie, and then you know it immediately, or you find out 30 years later, it can chip away. And this is, to me, where in your life, no matter who you think is a great person, the only one that really qualifies in that place is Jesus that walked this
Yep.
earth. So I have two quick stories. One of them, you guys know I have a mentee, and he has a real difficulty with the truth. And when he deceives someone, he has achieved something in his mind. And he'll even speak of it, right? That, well, I got one over on her, or I got one over on him. When the reality is, we just started to have this discussion. The reality is he's deceived himself.
You said you
But
have a what, Greg?
a mentee.
Oh, mentee. Okay.
Yeah.
I thought you said
So
an ENT, and I'm like, what? It's like,
yeah, that's not a very good EMT. So but if you look at his life, he's had significant people that have just lied constantly. It's what he understands is the way the world turns, right? And it's really um, difficult for him to even understand the importance of telling the truth. On the other hand, and I'll tell this story, I had a grandmother, my mom's mom, who was just the salt of the earth, right? And I learned so much from her. And she's 98 and she's in a nursing home here in Zionsville. And I'm in the room with my aunts, and it comes up for the first time that my two oldest aunts have a different father than my two younger aunts and my uncle. She's 98. I'm like 50. And I'm going, what? You know, in other words, it was something no one talked about, because at the time when this happened in the world of America, you didn't talk about those things,
It was
right?
shameful. It was shameful,
It was
right?
shameful.
Right.
Yeah. Yep.
And it turned out the first husband, she was married, but the first husband was kind of a traveling salesman, and was there sometimes and then left and never came back. And she raised those kids. And then who I knew as my grandfather, who was actually my blood grandfather, um, was a pastor, helped start the Church of the Brethren, helped start some colleges that exist here in Indiana. And I started to realize, oh my gosh, this has all been a falsehood at some level, right?
Right. Right.
But then I understood that, hey, as a young person, I didn't need that. I didn't need to hear that story. I didn't need it. All I knew is, and all I needed to know is my grandmother loved me, my aunts loved me, and my family was strong. But I will tell you, at 50 years old, when I heard that, there was some crumbling in the foundation that
Yeah. It rocks you.
yeah,
Yeah.
it does.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I have a story about I can't remember if it's 23andMe or Ancestry.com, but somebody got on there and they're my cousin, and I have no idea who they were. First cousin. And she reached out to me and said, "Hey, I'm trying to find out some information on Marvin Novus, who is my dad's oldest brother, because he's my father." And I'm like, what? I mean, so my uncle, he grew up in Chicago, went to the war, and then came back, married his wife, and then moved to Washington, and has four kids out there. And I'm like, okay, what do I do with this, right? So I had some records from my mom, and who went to a Lutheran school where my uncle went to, and it turns out her mother, she told me who her mother was a classmate of my uncle's in high school.
Oh,
But
wow.
she was born in Michigan. So you know what happened, right? She probably got
moved her.
pregnant, and her parents moved her,
Yeah.
from shame, and gave her up for adoption.
Yep.
So she was trying to reach out to the family because she had breast cancer, had just overcome breast cancer, and had a very, it's a hereditary, and she wanted to alert the family, So she reached out to her birth mother, who wanted nothing to do with her,
Oh.
which is sad, right? And then I'm like, okay, I don't know that I want to reach out to my cousins and reveal, because my aunt, at this point, my uncle had passed away, but my aunt was still alive. And I'm like, do I, give them that information? So I'm struggling with it. And 2 months later, my cousin in Renton, which is her half brother, signs on to Ancestry.com, and they're immediately connected. So I'm like, Thank you, Lord, because that connection was made without me doing anything. Right.
Right.
You know, and I'm talking to my siblings, you know, I mean, we understood what happened back in the, you know, that would have been the 50s, right? Yeah. Early 50s. You know, and our guess is my uncle might not have even known that because he went out to war right after he graduated from high school. And this could have been his high school, you know, girlfriend, and he went to war. He went to he went to the Korean War, and who knows? I don't know if he ever knew.
Right.
You know, and like I said, he had since passed. So I never circled back with my cousin, you know, because we don't talk a lot because they're out and to find out if that ever got revealed to his family or if he kept it to himself or what. So, you know, that's one of those things. Do you tell the truth? Do you help this person? I mean, that's a dilemma I had, and I just remained silent. But one of the pitfalls of 23andMe, right?
Yeah.
Uh, crazy.
Yeah, maybe one of the doses of reality is 23andMe too. You know,
Yeah.
it's
Yep. Yep.
you know, because I believe when you go to heaven, all that will be revealed anyway,
Right. Right.
and there will be no animosity in heaven about it. It's you know,
Yeah. 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 And the funny thing is, my cousin on my mom's side, who isn't related to her, but he sees my genealogy and I see his, and he's like, "Wait a minute, who's that gal?" He's like, because he knew my uncle and you know my cousins on that side, because you know occasionally we would all get together, and he's like, "Oh my gosh," he's like, "That's a half sister. That's Marvin's. You know,
Yeah.
that's one of his childs that he had out of wedlock." So
He's putting two and two together, isn't he?
yeah, yep,
well,
yep.
you know, it's interesting that you bring that up. So I'm having this conversation with my mentee this week, and I've been trying to figure out how many brothers and sisters he has. And it's always so convoluted. I can't figure it out.
Right,
And
right,
so, you know, I sat there and I'm going, okay, so you've got two brothers that live in Indianapolis, and you got a brother that lives in Chicago, and you got a brother that lives in New Mexico, and you have a sister that lives in Texas. And he goes, yeah, but that one is kind of not very close because it's my dad's second girlfriend, and it's just like, oh my gosh. And what I'm realizing is, to me, this is a strange story. To him, it's almost everybody he knows is the same story.
right, right. That's normal. Yeah,
Yes, that's the
yeah,
normal.
yeah, yeah.
To him, it's
Right.
go therefore multiply.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what it is, but it really gets to me to this discussion about, you know, the core family. Um, but then again, I mean, look at Abraham. Look,
Right,
you
right.
know, it's like, well, you know,
Yeah. So anyway, I think that's all I got. Oh, these are the sources that I used to put this together. And one
This
was
is
Dr.
great,
Jeremiah.
Steve. You did a nice job. You could tell
Well, I
you did a
thought it was
lot of
just
work on it.
it's just I thought it was interesting. I got hung up on the whole Jonathan thing, you know, that hey, he lied, but it was, you know, it was for the greater good. And obviously we'll learn about David as we move into 2 Samuel, and there's a lot of lying going on there too.
Oh yeah.
But
so let me ask
he
you,
had God's heart.
so
Go
let
ahead.
me ask you a question. So when you did the GPT version of this, did it send you off on anything that you went, what?
I did not see that on this.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
No, it pretty much it followed a lot of Dr. David Jeremiah's blog, but I think he might be somebody that's Google searched more than somebody else, right? So it's probably got a higher score when they pull this stuff together.
You know, it might have been interesting to ask Chat GPT to give you a version that's biblical and a version that's not.
Non-biblical, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And Horace Alexander, his take was it was more like Steve said, if it's not done to deceive in an evil way, it's not always, you know, bad to to stretch the truth or not tell the truth in certain instances. But it's a slippery slope, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, it's not something you want to live to do. But you know, and he's the one that pulled up those two examples. You know, about the guy behind them, you know, the seat of the girl's car and that kind of stuff. So, but yeah.
Well, you know that when I look at what you've done with lying, if you want to take any one of the commandments, you can fit it into any one of those spots where when, you know, it was left to Satan to tempt us. And God knows that we don't do a really good job of being 100% and not breaking his commandments. So along with lying, all the others are right in there with it too. So uh, it's a great lesson, and it's a lesson that really, you know, I've looked a lot at the lying side, but it's true of almost all our commandments. Is that when a baby is born, they almost immediately we don't teach them how to lie. We don't say, okay, this we're going to sit down now. I'm going to teach you how to lie.
Yeah.
It happens. I mean, when two twins are in the back seat and one of them passes gas and they blame it on each other, uh, that's a lie. Later on, when something happens at the house and they say, well, the dog did it. You know, I didn't teach them how to do that.
Let's ask them. Maybe they
yeah,
would say you did.
yeah,
I was
yeah.
going to say, Gary, you didn't intentionally teach them how to
Yeah.
do that.
Uh-huh.
They might have observed it.
They see, you know, I go with my own state. My mother used to, and it's true. I learned the hard way, but it's true. She used to say to me, you're either going to tell me the truth or you're going to lie to me. And if I find out you lied to me, it's going to be mighty much worse than if you would have told me the truth. So when she'd look at me like that, I'd say, "Ah, yeah, you're right. I'm lying. The truth is." So I kind of tried to do that with my own kids to say, "All right, if you tell the truth, you're going to get rewarded for it. If you tell a lie, it's going to be hell to pay."
Well, and the sad thing is, look how many leaders, whether it's politicians or business people, that are caught lying and cheating, and people think that's what they need to do to get ahead, right? Those are the so-called worldly role models, you know.
You know, it's scary for me is to see, and I agree, nothing's worse than have somebody that you've admired by their leadership and find out they were a total lying son of a
Fraud.
gun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fraud, yeah, and it just tears you up. But yet you have those people that even they know that they are fraudulent and they are lying, and they still talk to you about like they are somebody that you need to follow. And it's like, no, I don't want to follow that person. That person is not what I thought they were. But you know, I in fact see that more than not in some of the millennial people that I work with is that, boy, once they get sucked on somebody, you could tell them that, you know, they committed murder or something, but they're never going to quit following them. They think they're the greatest thing that happened.
Well,
Misery destroys company.
yeah, there's a scenario that's I think interesting. And it happens I think for most of us in sports. You play a football game or a baseball game or a basketball game, and at the end of the game, how you feel, bumps, bruises, tired, not tired, has almost everything to do with whether you won the game or you lost the game, right?
Yep,
Yep.
yep.
Yeah.
And part of this gets into how people tell you you're doing, right? And there's something that God wove into us that um, that that manifests this, right? You know, you make one good shot in golf after 117 bad ones, and you think to yourself, you know what, I could play this game. This is well,
Watch out, Tiger.
yeah, you know. So when you kind of translate that into how people build you up versus tear you down,
Hmm.
that's how meaningful it is. And you could see it in sports because you feel it, right? And you go, I know that I have as many bumps and bruises and I'm just as tired as I was when we lost, but I don't feel it because we won. And that just speaks, at least to me, it gives you a perspective on the power of words, right? The power of encouragement. versus the power of negative, right? And so, for some reason, when we talk about this concept of omitting some things when you're talking to somebody to try to build them up, and emphasizing other things, that technically is a lie too, right?
Yeah.
But again, you're reading someone and you're trying to determine what do they need to hear right now, and not from a biblical truth perspective, but just to build them up. Yeah, I don't know.
And you have to be truthful, because if you're competing and you lose and you played crap, the last thing you need is a coach to tell you, you guys played great. No, tell me I played hard, because you look at them like, no, we didn't play great. Did you see the game we just played?
Right.
Oh, we got to hang around a little longer and get your trophy for losing.
Right.
You get your
Exactly.
Who brought the snacks?
participation.
Who brought the
Participation
snacks?
Yeah. Well, you guys have something going. I mean, I see it all the time here. I don't know if it's ever, I'm sure it is, but this Caitlin Clark thing is just in our news all the time here. And, you get to the point about with me is what is the truth and what is not the truth with a lot of what you're seeing. You can't get by it. Social media is full of it. YouTube is full of it. Uh, and I saw Caitlin on David Letterman has that talk show now where he brings somebody star somebody on, he interviews them, and in that interview he asked her about her Nike shoes, and she showed him a prototype of the Nike shoe, and she was wearing them and all that. Then I see on YouTube where she lost her contract with Nike, and I'm going, well, who's telling the truth here? What's going on here?
You got to watch the time frames on David's
Oh
show.
yeah. It's just, but it's kind of what they were saying here. What Steve was saying. We live in a world that moves so fast that when some people will read that and say, "Well, did you hear she lost that Nike contract?" Well, that's not really true. But anyway, Caitlin's big in Omaha. It's on the news a lot.
Yeah, she's
big
pretty big
everywhere.
here in Indiana too.
Yeah. Well, I hope so, because I was thinking, I thought I moved.
I tell you what, Gary, that issue is about as complex an issue you can have, and I think some of this, I almost wish we were done recording, but
You can
some of
stop
this,
recording. You can stop recording. We're going to move to prayers next anyway.
yeah.
All right, here we go. I'm going to stop it.